This cotton muslin is one of my favorite fabrics to work with. I've been using it for several years now. I used some chalk to mark around the sides of the bottom of the basket and rough cut a circle out. Then I measured how much I want the liner to hang over the edge of the basket and add in an inch, inch and a half for seam allowance because I'm folding over quite a bit here. I also sergered the edge. Once you fold and iron your edge, go ahead and straight stitch. I think I went through twice just to be meticulous about it. Then I sewed the ends to meet and sergered that as well. I used a large needle with some embroidery thread with a loose straight stitch to gather the fabric. And I'm going to pin that to the circle. The reason I'm gathering it is because the basket isn't completely straight. It's smaller in the bottom than it is at the top edge. So I want to leave that extra fabric there so it can line the entire inside of the basket. Once I get it pinned, I'm going to sew it together and serger it. I do like to use a lot of pins in this case. I also like these old-fashioned style pins with the very large pearl head on them. I find it just easier to use. I know a lot of people use the clips and I haven't got them to try them. So after I have it stitched together, I place it back into the basket and I want to separate a few inches to where the handles are going to go. And I just cut it and gave it a little small hem. I had to use the thread ripper to take a little bit of the thread out. It wasn't a super big deal. I like to use tweezers often when I'm sewing. It helps me guide the material sometimes through the machine. And just sew those edges so they're not going to fray. And leave the end open so you can put your cording through it. I'm using a hemp cord that's for jewelry making. It's a really thick one, and an upholstery needle because it's not super sharp on the edge and it goes through really nice. And then I just tie them off at the ends and that's it. This basket is going to be very similar, and the main thing is that it's a rectangle, so we're going to create corners. This basket is thrifted. The first one was free from a neighbor, gave on the side of the road. And the last basket, I think, was one that was my mom's that she didn't use. I pieced together some fabric scraps to make the liner long enough, and I also sergered the edges. I thought I should also mention the reason I use the neutral color for the fabric is because I hang them from the shelves where I put plates and mason jars and stuff. And I like it to look more neutral and less busy, and I didn't want to take away from that. For the third basket, it's going to be a little more intricate or more steps. It's not complicated. I don't want it to be overwhelming, but I did want to do a little diagram with math. Because when you measure the sides of the basket, you want to write them down so you don't forget, especially because typically baskets are different sizes at the top and the bottom. And I wanted the liner to lay in there just right. I thought I could cut out the shape all at once, and that's fine to do. But I thought maybe it would be visually easier if I cut it out in sections. So I basically made several rectangles for each side. However, when I cut it out, I cut 2 of each one because I'm doubling it and making this liner like double thick. But we're just going to do one at a time. And you can see where I took the rectangle and made it sort of a trapezoid shape. That way it'll come up in the basket wider at the top and smaller in the bottom. And just piece them together and sew them together, and then sew your corners so you have like a little box. I also used the serger machine. Also, I should have mentioned in the beginning of the video to change your needle accordingly. I use a lot of the time a heavy duty needle, but for most of these projects I use a standard sewing needle. And you want to coordinate your threads. My presser foot there is the wrong one. It's an open-toed foot, and I had switched it to a standard presser foot. Once you have your little box thing sewn, you're going to repeat the steps and sew the second one together as well. So you'll have 2 of them. And then we're going to connect them. So to connect them, I first pin the short sides only together. And that's with right sides facing in. And just sew the short sides. After that, turn it right side out just as you would like a pillowcase. And iron the seams where you sewed and along the edge where you didn't sew. And we're going to cut out and add straps as well as flaps. I'm showing you how I made the straps like a double fold bias tape, but it's not cut on the bias. You could use ribbon or take tubes of fabric and sew them and turn them right side out. However you want to make your straps, this is just the easiest way I found to make them out of fabric, because I struggled turning those little tubes right side out. I found the easiest way to add the straps and the flaps was to iron the seams and the folds and pin it all into place with the basket, using the handles to make the marks exactly where you want the straps. And that way you don't have to do any extra measuring or anything. When you go through your sewing machine, just go through very slowly. You may need a heavy duty needle. I did go through with a standard needle. And just straight stitch around, and that's it. I did go around twice and around the edge of the flap as well,